My name is Howard Miller. I'm 70 years old, and from this rocking chair on my little porch, I'll tell you how I discovered that the son who stripped me of everything, my pension, my property, and even my dignity, didn't even carry my blood. I've always been a simple, hardworking man who never imagined that betrayal would come from the one I loved most. Now, with calloused hands that show the passage of time, I sit here to share my story with you. But before I continue, please subscribe to the channel and comment on where you're watching this video from. Your support means the world to me. Just 8 months ago, I lived in a beautiful house on the outskirts of Cleveland, a house I bought with the sweat of 40 years working on the railroad. It wasn't a mansion, but it had a lovely garden, 3 bedrooms, and was completely paid off. It was my pride, the fruit of a lifetime of effort. "Dad, I need you to sign these bank documents," my son Jack told me one afternoon as we shared a coffee in this very same rocking chair. "It's just to update your pension information. You know how this paperwork is." Jack, my only son, or so I believed then, had always been sharp with numbers. He studied accounting, thanks to the sacrifices my wife Doris and I made. She passed away 5 years ago, and since then, he'd offered to help me with my finances. With my tired eyes and blind trust in my own flesh and blood, I signed whatever he put in front of me. "Of course, son," I replied, taking the pen. I didn't read the papers. Why would I distrust my own child? That signature would change my life forever. 3 weeks later, I was making breakfast when there was a knock at my door. It was early, barely 8 a.m. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," said a man in a suit carrying a briefcase. "I'm from the National Commerce Bank to inform you that you must vacate the property within the next 7 days. I froze. "Vacate? This house is mine. I paid it off 15 years ago. The man adjusted his glasses and handed me some documents. "According to these papers, you took out a mortgage on your house and have failed to make the payments. The property has been foreclosed on." My heart pounded. There must be a mistake. I never mortgaged my house. "Your signature is right here, sir," he said, pointing to a line at the bottom of the page. It was my signature, no doubt, but I had never consented to this. I immediately called Jack. It rang 3 times before he answered. "What's up, Dad? I'm busy." His voice was distant, irritated. "There's a man from the bank here. He says I mortgaged the house and have to leave. What's going on, son?" There was a long silence. Far too long. "Oh, that. Yeah, I had to do it, Dad. I needed capital to invest in a business deal. I explained it to you when you signed." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "You never explained you were mortgaging my house. You told me it was pension paperwork." "Well, maybe you weren't paying close enough attention," he replied coldly. "Anyway, I've already sold the house. I'll be by tomorrow to take you to an apartment I rented for you." "You sold my house without asking me? This is fraud, Jack." "Don't be dramatic, Dad. At your age, you don't need all that space. The apartment is more practical. It's near the clinic." He hung up before I could respond. I just stared at the phone, stunned. How could my own son do this to me? The next day, Jack arrived with his wife, Olivia. There were no smiles, just empty boxes. "Pack the essentials," he ordered, dropping the boxes on the living room floor. "The apartment is small. Not all of this will fit." "What are you talking about? I'm not leaving my house," I protested. Olivia, who had always been cold to me, chimed in. "Don't be stubborn, Howard. The house is sold. You can either leave peacefully or we'll call the authorities." "Are you threatening me in my own home?" "It's not your home anymore," Jack shot back, checking his watch as if he had more important places to be. "The new owners arrive in 3 days. You either come with us to the apartment or find somewhere else to stay, but you have to get out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt short of breath. "Why are you doing this? I gave you everything, Jack. I worked my whole life to give you the best." For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I'd never noticed before. Contempt. "The best? A mediocre education in public schools while you stashed money under the mattress? Do you know what I could have achieved with better opportunities?" His words hit me like slaps. I had always thought I'd given him a good life, that he was proud of me as I was of him. "Please, just pack your things," Olivia interrupted. We have an important lunch at 2, and we don't want to be late. With a shattered heart, I packed a few changes of clothes, my medications, some photographs, and personal documents. Everything that could fit into 2 small boxes. 70 years of life, reduced to 2 boxes. The apartment turned out to be a single room in an old building with peeling walls and a shared bathroom down the hall. It was nothing like Jack had described. "This is temporary," he explained, leaving the boxes on the floor, "until we find something better." "My pension, how will I pay for food, for medicine?" I asked, still in shock. "I handle your pension, like always," he answered dryly. "I'll bring you cash each week for the basics." They left without saying goodbye. That night, sitting on a bed that wasn't mine, in a room that smelled of damp, I cried for the first time since Doris died. The following weeks were hell. Jack showed up only once, left me $50, barely enough to eat for a few days, and said he was busy with important investments. My neighbor, Mr. Peterson, a kind man in the room next door, suggested I seek legal help. "What your son did is a crime, Mr. Miller. You should see a lawyer." I didn't want to believe my own son was a criminal, but my desperation was growing. One day I gathered my courage and visited Thaddeus Tad Quinn, an old friend who had studied law and, though retired, still occasionally advised on cases. Tad welcomed me into his modest office, listened attentively, and didn't hide his outrage. "This is fraud and abuse of trust, Howard. Your son forged documents by deceiving you into signing them under false pretenses. We can file a complaint, but we need proof." "What kind of proof?" I asked, nervous at the thought of legally confronting my own son. "Any documents that show the house was yours, your pension statements, witnesses who can corroborate your story." Fortunately, among the few things I had brought were the original deeds to the house and some old bank statements. Tad reviewed the documents and nodded, satisfied. "This is a good start. I'll prepare a civil lawsuit and will ask for his accounts to be frozen until this is resolved." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of court visits, sworn statements, and agonizing waits. Jack fought back with his own lawyer, claiming I had voluntarily gifted him the house and that he managed my pension for my own good due to my mental decline. "We need something decisive," Tad told me one afternoon in his office. "Something that proves, without a doubt, that he acted in bad faith." It was then that the judge ordered something unexpected. As part of the conservatorship process Jack had initiated, claiming I was unfit to manage my own affairs, the court requested medical evaluations and, surprisingly, a DNA test to confirm our relationship. "It's standard procedure in these cases," Tad explained. "Don't worry, it just confirms what we already know." But fate had the biggest surprise of my life in store. 3 weeks later, Tad summoned me to his office urgently. His expression was grim as he handed me a sealed envelope. "The lab results are in, Howard. I think you should sit down." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and read the report. Once, twice, 3 times, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. "This has to be a mistake," I finally murmured. Tad shook his head. "The lab is one of the most respected in the state. They ran the test twice to be sure." According to the report, the probability of Jack being my biological son was 0%. 0. There was no margin for error, no room for doubt. The man I had raised for 45 years, the man I had given all my love and trust, did not carry my blood. How was this possible? Tears streamed down my cheeks. "Doris, she wouldn't have." Tad placed a hand on my shoulder. "There's more, Howard." When we presented these results to the judge, the case took an unexpected turn. The judge ordered a deeper investigation. He showed me another document, a report from the Bureau of Vital Records that revealed something even more shocking. 45 years ago, in the hospital where Jack was born, another baby boy was born on the same day, at the same hour. The hospital had a history of administrative problems back then, Tad explained. There were negligence complaints that were eventually dismissed. We believe there may have been a mix-up with the baby's identification bracelets. "Are you saying my real son is out there? That he grew up with another family?" "It's a possibility we have to investigate. If so, Jack probably doesn't know either." That night, sitting by the small window of my rented room, looking at the stars barely visible between the buildings, I felt a mix of emotions impossible to describe. Pain for the betrayal of Jack, who, despite not being my blood, was still the son I had raised. Confusion at the possibility that Doris might have kept such a monumental secret, and an unexpected spark of hope. Somewhere out there could be my real son, a man I'd never met, but who carried my blood. "I'm going to find you," I whispered to the stars. "I don't know who you are or where you are, but I'm going to find you before it's too late." What I couldn't imagine was that the path to my lost son would lead me through dark places of the past, revealing secrets Doris had taken to her grave, and forcing me to confront the true nature of Jack, who, upon learning of the investigation, would do everything in his power to stop me. But here, from this rocking chair where I now tell my story, I can tell you that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of despair was worth it. Because at the end of the road, I would find not only justice, but also the love of a family I never knew I had. From this rocking chair, as the afternoon sun gently falls on the porch, I continue my story. I was telling you how I discovered that Jack, the son who had taken everything from me, was not my blood. That revelation changed my life forever. The morning after I received the DNA results, I woke up with a clear purpose: find my real son. Tad had promised to help me search the hospital records, but I couldn't just sit and wait. "I need to see the old photos," I told Mr. Peterson over breakfast in the small shared kitchen. "Maybe there's a clue in them." "Where are they, Mr. Miller?" "At my house, or what used to be my house," I answered bitterly. "Jack didn't let me take more than the essentials." Mr. Peterson, who had always been so supportive, put down his coffee cup and looked at me with determination. "Then we'll go get them. Do you know if Jack is living there now?" "No, he has his own house in a wealthy suburb. He sold my house to a young couple." "Then let's go talk to that couple. We'll explain the situation. I'm sure they'll understand." That same afternoon, Mr. Peterson drove me to my old house. The garden I had tended so carefully was already showing signs of neglect, but the hydrangeas I planted with Doris were still in bloom, oblivious to the human drama unfolding around them. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding. A young woman about 30 opened the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking curiously at the two elderly men on her doorstep. "Excuse the intrusion, ma'am," I began. "My name is Howard Miller. This was my home until recently, when my son sold it without my consent." Her expression immediately changed to one of surprise and concern. "You're Mr. Miller? Your son told us you had decided to move into a nursing home because the house was too big for you to manage." "I'm afraid that's not true, ma'am. My son tricked me into signing papers and then forced me into a rented room. I encouraged her to contact my lawyer, Tad, to verify my story and showed her my ID. After a brief phone call, her attitude shifted completely. "Please, come in," she invited us. "My husband is at work, but he'll be back soon. My name is Lucy, by the way." Once inside, it pained me to see how they had changed my home. The furniture Doris and I had shared for decades was gone, replaced by modern pieces that told no stories. "What exactly are you looking for, Mr. Miller?" Lucy asked. "Photo albums? Personal documents?" They were in a wooden trunk in the attic. Lucy nodded. "We haven't touched anything in the attic. We just moved in 2 weeks ago and are still getting organized." We went up to the attic, a small but tidy space where I kept my life's most precious memories. And there it was, the trunk, covered in dust, but intact. "May I take this? They're personal memories. They have no value to anyone but me." "Of course," Lucy replied kindly. "But Mr. Miller, there's something you should know. Your son came back 3 days ago. He said he forgot something important. He spent almost an hour up here." A chill ran down my spine. What was Jack looking for? And had he found it? We returned to my building with the trunk. That night, while Mr. Peterson slept, I opened the chest of memories with trembling hands. There were photo albums, old letters, Jack's school records, travel mementos, but I focused on the most important thing: the photos from the birth of the boy I thought was my son. In the hospital, holding a baby wrapped in a blue blanket, smiled the man I was 45 years ago. Beside me, Doris, pale but glowing with happiness. I studied every detail, searching for any clue that we might have known, somehow, that this baby wasn't ours. Nothing. Our eyes showed only love and pride for our firstborn, Among the papers, I found the original birth certificate, the hospital ID bracelet, and a yellowed envelope I didn't remember ever seeing before. My name was written on it in Doris's handwriting. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside was a letter dated 15 years ago, shortly before she was diagnosed with the cancer that would ultimately take her. My dearest Howard, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer by your side. There is something I have carried in my heart for too long, a weight I don't want to take with me to my grave. The day our son was born, there was a mix-up at the hospital. I was exhausted after the delivery, and when they brought the baby to me, something deep inside told me he wasn't our child. I called the nurse, but she assured me there was no mistake. Days later, back at home, I still felt that something was wrong. I hired a private investigator who discovered that another baby boy had been born at the same time. The other mother was a single poor woman who gave birth and left the hospital the same day. Headed for Arizona, they said. By then, we had already registered the baby as Jack Miller. What could I do? Search for a woman with no resources in a distant state? Take her child to get ours back? Tell you who already adored Jack that he wasn't ours? I chose to stay silent and to love that child as if he were mine. Ours. But destiny is strange, Howard. One day 5 years ago, I saw a young man at the market who was the spitting image of you at 40. I approached him trembling and asked his name. He was Ethan Reed. He worked as a teacher at the elementary school in the Hopewell district and had been adopted by a humble couple as a baby. I didn't have the courage to tell him the truth or to tell you, but I left money in a trust fund in his name, without him knowing who it was from, to help him build a better life. Forgive me, Howard. I hope you understand why I kept silent. Despite everything, I love Jack as a son, and I know you have loved him that way too. With eternal love, Doris' tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. Doris had known the truth and had found our biological son, but she took the secret to her grave. Or almost. The next day, as soon as the sun was up, I called Tad from the payphone on the corner. I found something, Tad, I put without preamble. Doris knew the truth, and our real son's name is Ethan Reed. He's a teacher in Hopewell. Are you sure, Howard? How did Doris know? I told him about the letter, and we agreed to meet at his office that afternoon. As I hung up, I noticed a black car parked across the street. Inside, a man was watching me intently. When our eyes met, he started the engine and drove off quickly. At Tad's office, we went over Doris's letter and the other documents I'd recovered. This is extraordinary, Howard, my friend said. With this letter and the DNA results, we have a solid case against Jack. But more importantly, we have your real son's name. I need to find him, Tad. And we will, but we must be careful. If Jack finds out we're looking for Ethan, he might try something dangerous. He's already shown what he's capable of. Do you think that man in the car could be someone Jack hired to watch you? Since we filed the lawsuit and presented the DNA results, he must be getting nervous. Tad made a few calls and confirmed that an Ethan Reed did indeed work at Benito Juarez Elementary in the Hopewell district. He was 45, married with 2 children, and well-respected in the school community. I'm going to see him tomorrow, I decided. I'll go with you, Tad insisted. This won't be easy, Howard. You're about to tell a man that his whole life has been a lie. I could barely sleep that night. I imagined 1,000 different scenarios. Ethan rejecting me, Ethan embracing me, Ethan calling the police, thinking I was a crazy old man. But I had to know. I needed to see with my own eyes the son I never had the chance to raise at him. The next morning, as I waited for Tad at the entrance of my building, I saw the black car again. This time the driver rolled down the window, and I saw his face clearly. It was Jack. "Good morning, Dad," he said with a cold smile I'd never noticed before. "Heading out early? What are you doing here, Jack?" "I heard you recovered some things from the house, things that now belong to me. They're family memories, Jack. They have no monetary value." "Oh, I think they do," he replied, and his tone chilled my blood, especially certain letters that could confuse a judge. So he knew. He must have found a copy of Doris's letter in the attic, which is why he'd gone back to the house. "It's too late, Jack. The truth is coming out." "What truth, Dad? That you raised a son who wasn't yours? That your wife cheated on you your whole life? Or that now, in your desperation, you're trying to fabricate evidence against me?" I never said Doris cheated on me. There was a mix-up at the hospital. His laugh cut me off. A mix-up? Please, Dad. That's the oldest story in the book. Mom had an affair, had another man's kid, and now you want to take revenge on me because I'm finally claiming what's mine. What's yours? I exclaimed, anger replacing my fear. I gave you everything, Jack. A home, an education, unconditional love, and you repaid me by stealing what little I had left. For a split second, I saw something like remorse flicker in his eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. I'll give you one chance, Dad. Drop the lawsuit, hand over that letter and any other evidence you have, and I promise I'll increase your monthly allowance. You can move into a better place. Are you bribing me, Jack? I'm offering you a deal. You won't like the alternative. Are you threatening me if I see? I asked, incredulous at the man I thought was my son had become. Take it however you want, it said to me. Ah, he said, starting the engine. You have until tomorrow to decide. I'll be here at 10 for your answer. He sped off just as the taxi with Tad arrived. My friend immediately noticed my distress. That was Jack. What did he want? I told him about our conversation as we headed to Hopewelven. Tad listened intently, his face hardening as I recounted the veiled threats. This is serious, Howard. We should file a police report. I have no proof, Tad. It would be his word against mine. Benito Juarez Elementary was a modest but well-kept building. Children of all ages played in the yard during recess, their laughter a stark contrast to the gravity of our mission. In the principal's office, a middle-aged woman greeted us kindly. We're looking for Mr. Ethan Reed, Tad explained. It's a personal matter. Mr. Reed is teaching a class right now. He finishes at 12:30. Would you like to wait or come back later? We decided to wait. Every minute felt like an eternity as we watched the children play, imagining what Ethan might have been like at that age. Would he have looked like me, had the same interests, the same skills? Did his adoptive family give him all the love he deserved? Finally, the bell rang, signaling the end of classes. Groups of children began to stream out of the classrooms. And then I saw him, a tall man with dark hair, a few gray strands at his temples, walking with a group of 10-year-olds. His profile, the way he walked, even the way he gestured while talking to the kids, it was like looking at myself 30 years ago. That's him, I whispered, unable to hold back my tears. That's my son, Tad. My friend squeezed my shoulder, giving me strength. Are you ready? I wasn't. How could anyone be ready for a moment like this? But I nodded, and together we approached Ethan Reed, the son I never knew I had, the son who was about to discover a truth that would change his life forever, just as it had changed mine. As we walked toward him, a thought crossed my mind. Jack had given us until tomorrow to hand over the letter. What would he do when he discovered that not only were we not giving in to his blackmail, but we had already found Ethan? The answer would come sooner than I imagined, and it would be more violent than we could have ever predicted. The evening is growing cool as I continue my story from this rocking chair. The moment I first saw Ethan is etched in my memory, one of those instances that divides your life into a before and an after. We approached him as he finished saying goodbye to his students. He seemed to be a beloved teacher. The children waved enthusiastically, and he called each one by name. Mr. Reed? Tad asked as we reached his side. Ethan turned to us with a kind smile. Yes, that's me. How can I help you? Seeing him up close was like looking in a mirror that reflected the past. He had my eyes, the same jawline, even the same small mole near his left eyebrow that I had inherited from my father. My name is Thaddeus Quinn. I'm an attorney, my friend introduced himself. And this is Howard Miller. We need to speak with you about a very important personal matter. Ethan's smile faded into a look of curiosity. He looked at me more closely, and for a second I thought I saw a flash of recognition in his eyes, as if something deep within him could feel the bond that connected us. Do we know each other, Mr. Miller? He asked. No, I replied, my voice breaking with emotion, but we should have, a very long time ago. The principal offered us her office for privacy. Once we were seated across from him, Tad took the lead, knowing I was too overwhelmed to speak coherently. What we're about to tell you is very sensitive, Mr. Reed, he began. A few months ago, Mr. Miller discovered that the man he believed to be his biological son was not. A DNA test confirmed it. Ethan looked between us, his expression a mix of confusion and caution. I'm sorry for his situation, but I don't see what that has to do with me, he said finally. Tad continued. Mr. Miller's late wife left a letter. In it, she explains that there was a mix-up at the hospital on the day their son was born. 45 years ago, two baby boys were born at almost the same time. As Tad recounted the events, Ethan's expression shifted from disbelief to astonishment. When he mentioned the exact date of birth and the name of the hospital, Ethan went pale. That's my birthday, he murmured. And that's the hospital. According to the letter, Tad went on, Mrs. Miller saw you a few years ago and noticed the extraordinary resemblance to her husband. She investigated and found out you had been adopted as a newborn. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, his back to us. His shoulders were tense. My adoptive mother told me I was abandoned at the hospital, he said, his voice strained. That my birth mother was very young, single, and couldn't support me. That's not true, I broke in for the first time. If you are who we think you were not abandoned. You were switched by mistake. And we were looking for you all these years. He turned back to me, studying my face intently. The resemblance is unsettling, he admitted. We have a way to confirm it, Tad said, pulling an envelope from his briefcase. If you're willing, a DNA test could clear up any doubt. Ethan sat back down, processing everything. And if it turns out I am your biological son, what do you expect from me, Mr. Miller? The question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought beyond finding him. I don't expect anything, I answered honestly. You're a grown man with your own family, your own life. I just wanted to meet you, to know that you're okay. And maybe to give you the chance to know your origins, if you want that. Something in my words seemed to resonate with him. He nodded slowly. My adoptive mother passed away 3 years ago, my father last year. I always wondered where I came from, who my biological family was. I never imagined. I might have been loved, wanted. You were, I affirmed fervently. Doris and I were so excited to meet you. Ethan took a deep breath. I'll do the DNA test, but I need time to process all this, and I'll have to talk it over with my wife. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet at a lab the next day. As we said goodbye, there was a moment of hesitation, as if we both wanted a hug but didn't know if it was appropriate. We ended up shaking hands, a formal gesture that betrayed the emotional storm we were both experiencing. On the way back in the taxi, Tad looked at me with concern. We should go straight to the police station to file a complaint against Jack for his threats. First, I need to go back to my room. The original letter from Doris is there, and I want to keep it safe. We arrived at my building near sunset. Mr. Peterson met us at the entrance, visibly agitated. Mr. Miller, thank goodness you're here. Your son was here looking for you. When I told him you'd left early, he went crazy. He demanded to go into your room, but I stood in the doorway and wouldn't let him. He threatened to come back with the police. How long ago did he leave? Tad asked. About 2 hours ago. But before he left, he said something strange. He said, tell the old man he has until tomorrow, or that little teacher and his family are going to regret it. My blood ran cold. How did Jack know about Ethan? He must have followed us to the school, Tad muttered, confirming my fears. This is serious, Howard. He's threatening Ethan and his family. We rushed up to my room to get the original letter and other important documents. While I secured them in an envelope, Tad made several calls, growing more frustrated by the minute. The police say they can't do anything without concrete proof of the threats, he explained. And since Jack is technically your son on paper, they might see it as a family dispute. What if I talk to Commander Riley? He owes me a few favors from my railroad days. It's a good idea. In the meantime, we should warn Ethan. I called the number Ethan had given me, but it went to voicemail. I left an urgent message telling him to be careful without going into details that might scare him. Commander Owen Riley agreed to meet us that night at a coffee shop near the precinct. He was a sturdy man in his 50s with a thick mustache and a piercing gaze. Howard Miller, he greeted me with a firm handshake. It's been years, but you're still as stubborn as ever, I see. And you still have that scowl that scares the crooks, I replied, remembering the old days. After introductions, we told him the whole story, Jack's fraud, the DNA discovery, Doris's letter. the meeting with Ethan, and finally the threats. Riley listened intently, taking occasional notes. Legally, we're in a tricky spot, he admitted when we finished. The threats are vague and without direct witnesses. Besides Mr. Peterson, the fraud with the house is clearer, but it will take time to resolve in court. And in the meantime, Tad asked, Ethan and his family have to live under threat? Howard has to hide? Riley shook his head. I didn't say we can't do anything. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Officially, my hands are tied, but unofficially, I can have a patrol car keep a discreet eye on Ethan's house, and I can have a personal chat with Jack. Let him know we're watching. I appreciate that, Owen, I said sincerely. Don't thank me yet. I need you to do your part. Gather all the evidence of the fraud, get signed statements, and above all, keep that letter from Doris safe. It's the key piece that ties everything together. We left with a plan. Tad insisted I stay at his house that night for safety, and I accepted. Before we left, I tried calling Ethan again, but he still didn't answer. That night in the guest room, I looked at the family photos I had brought with me. Pictures of Jack growing up, his first day of school, his graduation, his wedding to Olivia. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sadness. I had raised him as a son. I had loved him unconditionally. How could he have become the cruel, greedy man who now threatened me? Tad's phone rang after midnight. From my room, I could hear his alarmed voice. Moments later, he knocked softly on my door. It's Ethan, he said with a grave expression. He just called. Someone broke into his house while they were out for dinner. They tossed the place, but apparently didn't steal anything of value. Is his family okay? Yes, luckily they weren't home. But Ethan is convinced it wasn't a random burglary. They left a note on his desk that said, ask the old man about the letter. Jack was making good on his threat, and faster than we expected. We have to go, I said, getting up immediately. Riley is already on his way to Ethan's house. We'll meet him there. Ethan's house was in a middle-class subdivision with manicured lawns and quiet streets now disturbed by the flashing lights of patrol cars. A small crowd of curious neighbors had gathered. Ethan met us at the door, visibly shaken but trying to stay calm for his family. His wife, a petite woman with brown hair, looked at us with a mixture of fear and confusion. Their two children, a teenage boy and a girl around 12, sat huddled together on the sofa. Who are you people, really? The woman demanded. Why is this happening to us? I am so sorry, I said sincerely. I never wanted to put your family in danger. Raquel, these are the people I told you about, Ethan intervened. Mr. Miller thinks he might be my biological father. And because of that, someone breaks into our house? Because of that, my children are terrified? Commander Riley joined the conversation. Ma'am, I understand your concern. We are taking this incident very seriously. I've already assigned a patrol car to watch your house 24/7. While officers checked the house for evidence, Tad and I explained the full situation to Ethan and Raquel, including Jack's threats. What does this man want? Raquel asked. Money. He wants the letter that proves he isn't my biological son, I explained. Without it, it's harder to prove the fraud he committed. But why threaten us? We don't even know if Ethan is really your son. Because Jack is desperate, Tad intervened. If it's confirmed that Ethan is Howard's biological son, he could have legal rights to the assets Jack has stolen. Ethan, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. I'm not interested in any assets. I have my life, my job, my family. I don't want property or money. I know, I replied, and I don't expect you to claim anything, but Jack doesn't see it that way. He only sees another threat to what he considers his. Commander Riley approached us again. We found some prints, but from the MO, this looks professional. The lock wasn't forced. They used picks or a bump key. What do you suggest we do, Owen? I asked. For tonight, I'd recommend Mr. Reed's family stay in a hotel. We can discuss more permanent measures tomorrow. As the family packed a few things, Riley pulled me aside. Howard, this is escalating quickly. Whoever Jack hired, they're not simple thugs. He's spending serious money on this. Do you think he'd resort to physical harm? Riley sighed. I don't know, but I don't want to find out. We need to act fast. Where is the original letter? In an envelope at Tad's house. Good. First thing tomorrow, I want you to take it to a notary I trust. We'll get certified copies and put the original in a safe place. In the meantime, we'll rush Ethan's DNA test. Before Ethan's family left for the hotel, I had a moment alone with him on the porch. I'm so sorry I brought this chaos into your life, I said regretfully. Ethan looked at me for a long time. It's not your fault, Mr. Miller. Howard, please. He nodded. Howard, you know, my whole life I've wondered where I came from. My adoptive parents were wonderful, but I always felt like a piece of me was missing. I understand. Since I learned the truth, I felt the same way. When I saw you today, it was strange, like looking at a future version of myself. And now this. He gestured toward the ransacked house. It's all happening so fast. We can stop it, I offered. Forget the whole thing, the day test, everything. Your family's safety is more important than anything else. Ethan shook his head. No, we can't go back now. Jack, or whatever his name is, has already involved us. And besides, I need to know the truth, Howard. I need to know who I really am. We looked at each other in silence, united by a bond that went beyond blood, one we were just beginning to understand. Tomorrow we'll do the test, he said finally, and we'll face whatever comes next, together. In that moment, under the dim light of his porch, I felt something begin to heal inside me. The son I never knew was willing to give me a chance, despite the danger and uncertainty. But as Ethan walked away with his family, under the watch of 2 officers, I couldn't shake a dark premonition. Jack wouldn't stop easily, and something told me the worst was yet to come. What I didn't know then, as I rode back to Tad's house in the patrol car Riley had assigned us, was that Jack had already made his next move, a move that would test not only our newfound family bond, but my own moral integrity. The afternoon begins to fade as I reach the end of my story. From this rocking chair, watching the shadows lengthen on the porch, I remember those intense days that forever changed the course of our lives. The morning after the break-in at Ethan's house, Tad and I went to the notary Commander Riley had recommended. Doris's letter, now protected in a sealed envelope, felt like an invaluable treasure in my pocket. Good morning, Tad greeted the notary, a solemn-looking older man. Commander Riley sent us. I was expecting you, when the notary replied. The commander explained the situation. You need to certify a letter and place it in safekeeping. As the notary worked, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Mr. Miller? A professional female voice said. This is Dr. Sanders from Central WABS. Commander Riley asked us to expedite the DNA test results. If you and Mr. Reed can come in today at 2 p.m., we'll have everything ready. I called Ethan to give him the news. He sounded tired but resolute. We'll be there, he assured me. Ethan arrived at the lab, escorted by a police officer, courtesy of Riley. We greeted each other with a handshake that, almost without thinking, turned into a brief hug. Dr. Sanders, a young woman in a crisp lab coat, received us in her office. Normally these tests take several days, she explained, but given the circumstances, we've accelerated the process. The results are conclusive. She handed us an envelope. Ethan looked at me and gestured for me to open it. With trembling hands, I pulled out the report and read aloud. Paternity test between Howard Miller and Ethan Reed. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. The silence that followed was thick with emotion. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, as if absorbing the scientific confirmation of what our hearts already knew. So it's true, he finally murmured. I'm your biological father, I replied, my voice breaking. After 45 years, I finally found you. We left the lab with a strange mix of joy and apprehension. On one hand, we had confirmed our biological link. On the other, this would only intensify Jack's desperation. I need to go to the bank, Ethan said suddenly. There's something I want to show you. At the bank, Ethan requested access to a safe deposit box. In the private room, he pulled out a yellowed envelope. After my adoptive parents passed away, I found this among their papers. I never fully understood what it meant until now. It was a letter dated 15 years ago in a handwriting I recognized immediately, Doris's. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Reed, the letter began, you don't know me, but I know of your son, Ethan. I am writing to inform you that I have established a trust fund in his name for his college education. This money is a gift with no strings attached. I only ask that you do not mention my name to him until he is an adult. Signed, a friend. My parents told me about it when I turned 21, Ethan explained. Thanks to that money, I was able to get through college without any debt. I always wondered who that mysterious benefactor was. Doris, I sighed. Even without being able to tell you the truth, she found a way to take care of you, to be part of your life. Why didn't she just find me? Why didn't she tell you the truth? It was the question I had asked myself so many times. I think she was afraid of destroying two families, I reflected. Yours with the parents who raised you with love, and ours with Jack, whom we'd raised as our son. Maybe she thought the truth would cause more pain than good. As we left the bank, I noticed a black car parked across the street, the same one I'd seen watching my building. Don't look now, I told Ethan quietly, but I think we're being followed. The officer escorting us noticed it too and spoke discreetly into his radio. We hurried toward our car, but before we could reach it, the black car pulled up alongside us. The passenger window rolled down and I saw Jack's face clearly. Time's up, Dad, he said with a cold smirk. I hope you're ready for the consequences. Before we could respond, the car sped off and vanished into traffic. The officer had already reported the incident. Commander Riley wants you at the precinct immediately, he informed us. At the station, the commander was waiting with a grave look. We have a problem, he said bluntly. Jack just filed a complaint against both of you. A complaint? I exclaimed in disbelief. For what? He's alleging that you're conspiring to defraud him, forging documents and medical results to steal his legitimate inheritance. That's absurd, I protested. He's the one who defrauded me. I know, Howard, Riley said calmly, but he's presented witnesses, including his wife Olivia, who claim you've been acting erratically, suffering from paranoid delusions. He's trying to have you declared incompetent to maintain control of your assets, and he's requested a restraining order against Ethan, alleging harassment. This was unbelievable. It was a preemptive strike, a tactic to tie us up in court while he figured out his next move. We spent the next several hours with Tad, preparing our own countersuit, backed by the certified letter, the day results, and witness statements. It was late when we finished. Ethan and I stayed at Tad's house again for safety. That night, Ethan and I finally had time to really talk, to get to know each other. He told me about his happy, modest childhood, his love for teaching, and meeting Raquel in college. We talked until dawn, discovering similarities in our tastes, our way of thinking, even in small gestures we unknowingly shared. It was like catching up on 45 years of lost conversations in a single night. The next morning, Tad received a shocking call. It's my contact at the courthouse, he told us amazed. Jack just withdrew all his complaints. No explanation, no conditions. He just dropped them. It had to be a trap. But the answer came that afternoon when Commander Riley showed up at Tad's door. Jack was arrested this morning, he announced, but not because of our complaints. He explained that Jack had been involved in shady financial schemes for years. He hadn't just forged documents to steal my property. He had defrauded multiple investors, including some very dangerous people. One of them had filed a complaint with irrefutable proof. Jack is facing charges of aggravated fraud, forgery, and racketeering, Riley continued. And there's more. They found documents in his office, including a copy of Doris's letter. It seems he found it years ago, probably after Doris passed away. His wife, Olivia, is cooperating. According to her, Jack has known for years he wasn't your biological son. He hired a private investigator. The revelation left me speechless. He had known the truth all along and still proceeded with his cruel plan. Olivia also confessed, Riley added, that Jack hired the men who broke into Ethan's house, and he was planning something worse, possibly a kidnapping, to force you to legally sign over all your remaining assets. The days that followed were a blur of legal proceedings. A month later, we sat in Tad's office reviewing the recovery of my assets. The house is still tied up in court, Tad explained, but the couple who bought it is willing to settle once the sale is officially proven fraudulent. I don't want the house anymore, I said, surprising them both. It has too many memories, some good, some painful. I'd rather start over. A home isn't walls, it's the family inside. A year after that fateful DNA test, I sat down to write a response to a letter Jack had sent me from prison. He had written of his rage upon learning the truth, his feeling that his life was a lie, and his deep, albeit late, regret. Dear Jack, I wrote, I call you dear because despite everything, you are still the boy I raised, the boy I loved 4 decades. Blood didn't make you any less my son then, just as it makes Ethan my son now. The pain you caused was immense, but I understand the shock you must have felt. I cannot say I forgive you completely. That is a journey I am still on, but I can say that I do not hate you. When you are released, if you wish to try and rebuild some kind of relationship, my door will be open. And so, from this rocking chair where I've told you my story, I now look toward a future I never imagined. At 70, I found my life wasn't ending, but transforming. I lost a house but gained a home. I experienced the most painful betrayal, but also the most beautiful reunion. If I've learned anything, it's that family is defined not only by blood, but by love, by the choices we make every day. In this rocking chair, as the sun sets, I feel a peace I thought was lost forever. Because in the end, after the storm, I've found not only justice, but redemption. And above all, I found the truth, a truth that, though painful, finally set me free. If my story has moved you, remember to subscribe to Whispers of Experience and turn on notifications to hear more true stories like mine. Your support encourages me to keep sharing these lessons on the true meaning of family.